What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Power of X, where we stop guessing, start testing, and uncover the X factor that unlocks your true potential. Joe Laxton and Jim Wilternick here today, and today we're talking about uh, fad diets and just technology and products, scapegoats for why you aren't seeing results and seeing progress. So, Joe, what's something you've seen recently that that you want to chime in about that people are using as an excuse as to why they're not seeing progress?
Yeah, I think a lot of people sometimes they use the aspect of my body is broken. Things just don't work for me because what happens is we try all these different things. And again, I mean, if you log into social media, there's a product for you somehow. No matter what, they're going to find a way to have a product that's specifically for you. It, and that's just not the case. They might be good products, right? I'm not saying they're, and some are just downright hokey. But yeah, there might be some very good programs, very good protocols, very good products. So somebody buys it, purchases it, doesn't quite work the way they thought it was going to be. So, okay, my body's broken, right? There's something that's, mine just works differently than other people's. And there's some truth to that, right? Our bodies do work differently than other people's. But one of the problems that I find all the time, and I don't want people to stop doing this. I welcome it, but I get tagged in Facebook posts all day long. I mean, I'm constantly getting notifications where people want my opinion on some kind of product or um, there's a gal in particular right now that keeps tagging me and she says, "Here's what I'm doing. Tell me if this is right." And I like that they value my opinion, of course, but I can't do anything with that. It's I don't know what you're doing. I don't know your DNA. I don't know your biology, right? There's that point in time where it's like we're just chasing these results versus, again, with the world that we're in right now with technology like you're talking about, we can find out exactly what your body is designed to do. We can just find out, take the guesswork out of it and just run with it. But it's a hard thing sometimes for people to grasp just because of just all the noise that's out there with all the programs and what to do. It's like, I mean, it's like going to a gas station today and looking at an energy drink. There's like 7,000 choices and you're like, I don't, it's like an anxiety attack, well, what if I make the wrong choice? What if this does, and it's just, we can take the whole guessing game can be tossed out the window by a DNA test.
Yeah, I think one of the things you said there, Joe, that really resonated with me just listening to you is there are so many different things out there, and everybody is unique, and we can try a lot of different things. But one of the things that I think is important to your physiology, your chemical, you know, whatever, does change based on what you eat and things of that nature in your environment. But one of the things that I think we could really spend a minute on is how my body responds to cardio, how my body responds to strength training. Probably isn't going to change much. Now, maybe I need to do some more research, but from the foods we eat and things like that has a more direct and almost immediate impact, right?
Yep.
But how my body responds from a fat loss or muscle building, I think is probably a little bit more static of a thing that we can find out through a DNA test.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Because I mean, there's, for the most part, not to tell people what they want, but again, the years and years of coaching, I have concluded most people want to look more fit, have more energy, you know, um, whatever, create a certain shape, perform better at whatever they're doing. So I mean, those types of protocol can all be found in a test. It's not that it's not that somebody is going to do a DNA test and that DNA test is say should you squat? No, you're not going to have a DNA test that says, well, you should or shouldn't squat. It just says if you are squatting, this is the protocol for you to do it. How often, what's your rep range, what's your recovery time. No DNA test is going to say should you do cardio, yes or no. It's going to say here's how you should, based on your
Right.
goals. Should you do bicep curls? It's not going to say yes or no, but it says if you want big arms, and if you're going to do bicep curls, this is going to be the best protocol for you to do that with. And will will it say you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight? I mean, your DNA test isn't going to say that, but it's going to say if you're going to lose weight and you're going to be in a calorie deficit, this is the macronutrient profile that you should have. The ratio to protein, fats, carbs, things like that.
Yeah. So one thing I'm curious about. So when it comes down to performance for goals, obviously, depending on your goal, that shapes how you should train. But how does the DNA complement the training? So, like, if you don't respond well to fat loss with cardio, but you're training for a marathon, those are two different goals, right? So,
Yeah. Yes.
how does the DNA test on the performance side tell you how you can run a marathon better?
Absolutely. So it's not going to say you should or shouldn't run a marathon. You're like, I'm going to run one based on my DNA. How should I best train for it? So when we're coming down to performance, I mean, I was a runner decades and decades and decades ago, and I was a pretty decent runner. Um, my particular DNA would confirm I'm a distance runner, not a bodybuilder. You know, but did I do both? Yes, I did. So it didn't say you're never going to become a marathon runner, you're never going to become a bodybuilder, but based on our goals, we can take that information and now we can put together a training protocol. Meaning, there's uh, you can go buy a template on how to go prepare for a marathon, and you can follow a template, and you can go run a marathon, and you can run that template all day long, and it will allow you to run a marathon. Now, the question you have to ask is, how well do I want to run this marathon? That person who might have put that template might have completely different DNA markers than you do. So now I can say, okay, I want to run a marathon. I can run a DNA test, and it might say you are, below average in cardio response to, or fat loss or fitness, right? Because there's fat loss and there's also fitness, and they are different. So if it comes out that I am below average on a fitness response to cardio, I just have to train what my training protocol looks like. That might mean longer durations of threshold training. That might mean longer durations of recovery versus going out every day running incredibly. Now if I have an above average, well, then that means that I can push the envelope a little bit more, and I can basically decipher, yes, I want to run a marathon. Okay, do you want to run it in a certain time or not? Or I've already ran one, how do I increase that? Okay, we go run a DNA test. I actually work with individuals that do like ultras, and right, they've ran several of them, and then we go run a DNA test and they show me what they're currently doing, and we say, okay, here's what we have to make changes with. I think you need more threshold training versus, right, your big hard all out runs. So we can line up their training to what their DNA shows, and now they're going to perform that marathon, that ultra in a better time, a better performance, more optimal. Because there are people out there that just say, I just want to run one and check it off of a box. And then there's other people that say, I want to run one, but I want to do my best at it. Right. So we can't, I mean, I can help with people and their goals, but at the same time, you have a question, we have the answer. Not that I have it, but your DNA has the answer to the question. All we have to do is just look under the hood.
Well,
It's
I
What
think you're describing is what our company is about, is your X factor.
yep,
And it isn't about whether you can or can't. It isn't about exactly what your goals should or shouldn't be. It's more efficiency and more tailored programming to get you to your result, uh, again, more efficiently. So, if you've got a big shovel or a small shovel, you can grade your yard. How you go about that is going to be different according to the tools that you have available.
Yep.
And so, how we design somebody's protocols for nutrition as well as training, that's where your X factor comes in. And so, we're not saying, and if I can paraphrase Joe, we're not saying you should or shouldn't or can or can't run a marathon or be a bodybuilder. We're saying if this is your goal, according to what we see in your test, this is going to be the most efficient way to get you there.
Right. So then what is the cost of not testing and just kind of winging it and just trying to do it on your own?
Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It is, the cost is astronomical, and you probably can't even calculate it. It's going to be so much money, because we also look at what is the physical cost dollar wise. And there's also what is the cost of just your peace of mind and your frustration and your anxiety and all the different right problems out there. There's for the most part, people that do get results, they make decisions and they run with it, and that's where results come from. It's the people out there that they've been trying to get to this place for the last 5 to 10 to 15, 20 years, and nothing seems to work. And it's like, how much frustration have you created? I mean, how much money have you spent on the next new thing? But even outside of that, just the peace of mind knowing that, well, maybe I'm in the wrong direction, maybe I'm going, versus just saying, look, you can run a test, you can find the exact protocol that your body is going to respond the best to, and just run with it. And now you're going to save years and years and years of frustration, let alone, again, more than likely thousands of dollars. I mean, myself personally, I mean, I wanted to be big. I was, go back in time here, I graduated high school at 130 pounds. I guarantee my knees were probably bigger around than my thighs. But I was your typical, dictionary textbook picture of what a distance runner would look like. I just wanted to put on muscle. And the amount of programs that I bought, now this was back before YouTube and all the different things out there. Literally, I would buy magazines, I'd buy books, I would buy these programs that you had to download, and they'd, send you a thumb drive right back, way back when. And I remember I bought a program. It was like $189, and I got this, and I would sit up all night watching it, and then I'd go to the gym, and it was, looking back at it, everything that was in there after I did my DNA test, like 20 years later, I'm like, yeah, that was a complete waste of $189, because it said, do this on Monday, do this on Tuesday. It had no bearing on when I should, no bearing on my recovery protocol, no bearing on any of that. It just said everybody should lift this way Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It just said everybody should do it. And the guy that put it out, I have a ton of respect for, and he was a professional bodybuilder. So clearly he knew what he was talking about. Now, but here's the thing. Did it work for me? Yes, it did. It did work. But I could have been spending my time doing something that worked better.
Well, yeah, that's back to the shovel analogy, right? You can
Yes,
dig a
yes,
hole with a spoon, you know. You'll be there a while, but you could dig a hole with a spoon. But it would help to have the appropriate shovel for the task at hand.
yes,
And I think one of the things you just mentioned is that for me, so last year we were doing some pretty intense, high volume cardio training, and I think I respond pretty good to that. I shifted this winter to a more of a split between strength training and lighter cardio, and I've put on weight, some of it muscle, sure, but not maybe a lot. Um, but what I've noticed is, and this is something that I think people like me, the geek out on the data, I've been trying to focus more on rest days and lighter cardio days, and trying to pay attention to my HRV. And the way that goes back to my DNA is I have a higher injury risk. And so my head says, I'm going to go pound out 50 miles, but my body's like, no, you're not.
Exactly.
Now I can mentally get through it and continue to do it, but my body, my tendons, my joints, are constantly barking. So I think if we understand more than just I guess my point is it goes further than just should I do, hit training or should I do this? And I think that's where Joe, your experience comes in from coaching is we will get really, really close with the DNA test, and then it's going to tailor that programming toward the individual. But then it's also going to be a little bit of a feedback loop to really dial it in.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a client, and I think about this gal all the time when we talk about this topic. But for 3 years, off and on doing keto for 3 years, because why? Why would somebody in the last or have in the last decade do keto? Well, because it was the thing to do. I mean, you
Right.
can't go to our local grocery store. I saw keto friendly gummy bears. It's like I almost wanted to start a clothing line that just said keto friendly and it'd probably sell. Um, yeah, there's our next business venture. Keto friendly clothing line.
Workout wear,
Yes, yes.
keto workout wear.
Doing keto, right? Your problem is you're doing keto in the wrong shoes. But
Well, on my own, I've told this story before. I was ready to pull the trigger on the Mayo Clinic keto
yep,
diet
yep,
because I've seen all the keto popularity and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and everybody's doing keto and maybe I should do keto. And I think that's the thing that people think, right? Is well, maybe I should try that. Now, had I done this, not knowing my DNA, because remember, I got my DNA back and it said, hey, you don't process fats as efficiently, and fat loss is probably not going to be the keto is probably not going to be the best for me if I wanted to lose weight. Well, walk that out a little bit. Okay, so I spend, $100 on the Mayo Clinic keto diet and I gain weight. What likely outcome I may have had I not done my own DNA and research. Maybe I should have done the John Hopkins DNA or the John Hopkins keto diet instead of the Mayo Clinic one. Maybe I did it wrong. I mean, there's so many things, but in reality, keto just isn't for me.
yeah. That's the case, and this gal did that basically, right, for 3 years, off and on, because she just couldn't stick to it. Because the premise of keto is you deprive yourself of carbs for a duration of time, typically between 6 days to a week, sometimes a little bit longer, and then your body's emergency mechanism is it will release ketones that your body can then start converting and using as fuel, where it's using adipose tissue and blah blah blah, not the big giant pathway of how keto works, but that's the general premise. Well, she would do it, and again, about 6, 7, 8 days in, the brain fog, they would call the keto flu, right? That's when your body just hasn't quite, flipped that switch. So she'd push through it, and then nothing would happen. She's like, I'm about to lose my job. I can't think. Well, there's keto products out there. There's ketone salts, beta hydroxybutyrate, and all these different things, right? These are ketone bodies that people can purchase. They're they're quite expensive, to be honest. So she would drink those. Nothing, right? Some of them would have some caffeine in it, so it's like, okay, at least you got a little, right? So
Got
you
a
got
little amped.
caffeine in it, yeah. So that kind of maybe, I'm coming out of it. No, you're just stimulated now. And then like 2 weeks in, she's like, boom, she comes off. But in that 2 weeks, she would lose weight though. Why? Well, because she was in a calorie deficit doing keto. But then she'd always come off of it, gain it right back. And then, okay, I got to gear up again. She'd give herself a pep talk in the mirror. I got to go do keto, and then the exact same thing. And she did this for 3 years,
And we talk
off and
about
on, off and on.
expense.
And the amount of products. Again, she was. I was. We were talking. she was spending over $250 a month in this vitamin, this special, keto bomb and all these different things because, hey, this is right. It's a lifestyle, right? I,
Right.
I do a keto lifestyle. So now all of a sudden there's like an identity behind it. And I go, just run a DNA test. Sure enough, enhanced ability to utilize carbohydrates, normal to utilize protein, and below average to utilize fats. So
That's me.
I mean, so it's not, by no means am I saying you should not do keto if you're listening. I'm just saying she shouldn't. If
Right.
she would have if she would have done a DNA test 3 years ago when she was like, what do I have to do? Are you open to finding the map? Are
So
you
yeah,
open to finding the journey?
not only would you have saved her all the money on the various things she spent, so there's thousands of dollars, but I think to most people, time, 3 years. That's, I think, I mean, how do you put a price tag on that? I
Yeah,
think that's a bigger expense in my mind than even spending the dollars.
I totally agree. 3 years of feeling like a failure,
Yeah,
right? 3 years of just negative self talk of what's wrong with me,
right,
right? I'm not doing it hard enough. I must be a weenie. I'm just not that mentally tough or whatever it is that that's going on because again, it's supposed to work. Not again, not for everybody. She could have
right,
figured this out. And that's why I say, yeah, you can spend thousands of dollars, of monetary value, but just like Jim said, what's your peace of mind worth? What's all the negative self talk and the fact that people usually don't feel that great about themselves, anyways. Let alone
right.
now you're talking because this is why I like diet and fitness. I really like diet and fitness because these are the things that you can control. I can't control politicians, right? They're not asking my opinion. I think we should do this, right? They're not asked. So I'm not going to worry about it because they're not asking me. I can control what I consume and I can control my physical activity. I can
Inputs over
control
output.
it.
Yep.
Yes, I can control it. So if I can control the protocol based on my DNA, again, just I'm going to do this program with more confidence. I'm going to get better results. So therefore, I'm going to start creating momentum. I'm going to start creating good feelings. I'm going to be proud of myself. And then, next thing you know, I mean, can that spill over into other, again, me being melodramatic, could I be a better father if I have more confidence in my physical protocol? Absolutely. Can I be a better employee, a better business owner? Can I be a better husband if I'm if I've made a decision to run a protocol that's based on my life and I start seeing a lot of progress, again, this can spill over into other areas of life. And how do you put a monetary value on that? You don't.
Right.
That's me being melodramatic, but that's me.
No, I think it's accurate. I think that's probably one of the everybody talks about the endorphins, runner's high and, the endorphins that I'll tell you one that I get quite freak. I mean, last summer we were swimming a few days a week and noticeably we come out of the pool and we were doing, I don't know, what were we doing? Parks, a couple mile swims per workout.
Yeah, I mean it was 3,000 meters or so.
I mean, and you come out, so you think about that, you're swimming laps for like 20 minutes straight with no break. And then you do some shorter distance in that workout. But I remember I come out, get in the locker room and coming out of the gym, and I'm telling you what, man, I was on cloud nine. I felt great. I had great energy, and I just swam for almost an hour straight. So the endorphins, I guess my point, the endorphins that are released and how that affects the rest of your day, that's huge.
God, I'd be sitting at the bottom of the pool dead. Where'd Joe go? I don't know. He must have took off early.
No,
Well,
I
you
feel
don't have
like I
much
do.
buoyancy with all that muscle.
But I mean, going back to my story on that, like I'm telling you, I'm a motivated dude. I love. I mean, I want results. I want to diet for a week and have everybody notice, and I want to go to the gym for a week and blow it. Again, it's just not reality. But 8 years, I lifted really, 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 really hard for 8 years. I mean, I went to the gym sometimes twice a day, 6 days a week because everything I read said to do it, and I just wanted results. I mean, I wanted them bad. And I finally, I mean, actually, it wasn't even me, it was my wife. She's like, in a very sarcastic, loving, I don't know how, kind of like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what you're doing is not working, dude. Like, I mean, however you can put that and phrase that. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should ask for help, right? After 8 years of like this giant plateau. And I finally, and just again, this was one of those magical moments lined up without a DNA test. A guy, actually, my first coach and trainer kind of led me on to a different way of training, and it just so happened it worked for me. So again, it was just one of those, after doing a DNA test, it confirmed at that moment in time that I made a right choice. But all of a sudden I started getting results like with less time in the gym. I mean, I'm telling you, my wife was like, "Are you home already?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done working out." I mean, like, she didn't believe me because I used to work out so often and every day. And she's like, "Aren't you going to the gym today?" "No, I'm supposed to take the day off." And I just magically lined up my training protocol to my DNA by chance, basically. And I got a ton of results. And I'm telling you, dude, I was the most happy person on the planet because if I would have just done a DNA test when I started this, I mean, I am smart enough to know, okay, well, if this is what my DNA says, I'm not going to try anything else. I mean, I would have saved, again, monetarily, I would have saved thousands of dollars. But again, I look back and I'm like, I mean, I accomplished some pretty good things in bodybuilding, but it's like, oh man, I could have done so much better. I mean, if I would have done this 8 years sooner, where,
Well, Joe, we've come and seen you compete, and it is impressive, and quite frankly, all the competitors that get on the
yeah,
stage in these bodybuilding, never been to one, but one of the things that you've mentioned a few times is, being the coach of the year. So what? Tell me what it NPC Midwest Coach of the Year 4 times or something, three
two,
times,
two,
two.
two, two, two of the last 4 years. So it kind of goes in and out. And so yeah, I
But
mean,
think,
I've
but think about that is
a lot of
you.
people.
You've obviously helped a lot of people get on that stage and do it. Now think how much more efficiently you could do it with testing.
That's exactly where my brain went. I mean, it was like, man, if I would have known my athletes better, and I knew my athletes personally, but I didn't know their physiology. I didn't know their biology.
Yeah.
And I'm just like anybody else. I have biases. I have my attachments to certain ways. And for the most part, again, guilty as charged, I kind of took the same protocol with most of my athletes that worked for me.
Right.
Well, this worked for me, so therefore this is the right way to train. And then when my wife did a DNA test, and it was like, oh, I should have had you doing things completely different. And then all of a sudden it's that late night sitting up like, no, I didn't ruin anybody's life, but in my mind, I'm like, did I ruin their life? By training the way I did, and then all of a sudden, and I'm just like, as a coach, I just decided, I'm like, I am never guessing on this stuff. Not for me ever again, obviously, but I'm like, I'm never guessing on this stuff with clients.
Right.
I would be doing a disservice if I just said, well, okay, let's just run this. I mean, again, like in my mind, I'm like, well, that would just say I just don't care enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I take that, and this is a side topic, but it's like, I had, I coach a lot of youth athletes, anywhere from 8 years old up, through college. And one of these parents, like, I have an assessment that I charge for. I mean, it's not a ton of money, but they were like, well, can we train without doing the assessment? And in my opinion, I'm like, well, why would you? I'm like, I'm like, well, anybody can train your kid, but if they're not training them in the right direction based on how their body moves, why? I mean, this is your kid. Like, why would you just send them out there to just generically go train while they're growing? You're not taking their bone structure, their movement patterns. Like, do you not care about your kid? Like in my mind, I mean, it blew my mind that somebody wouldn't, thought that there wasn't value in finding movement patterns with a youth athlete. So that's kind of the way I view this. I'm like, what? In my mind, I'm like, why would I train any other way than the way my body is designed? Why would I?
Well, I think I mean, let's dive into that just a little bit. I think that brings up an interesting perspective. And I think it really truly is lack of understanding,
Yeah,
right? And maybe because of that lack of understanding and education on testing and what we do, I think it's that gap that we need to try and cross and help people understand it, because it really, yeah, I mean, that makes no sense. It's why would you do that? I
yeah,
mean, I'm not sure if you're doing this just for giggles and grins and to have fun, sure. But if you're willing to pay and your child, or the athlete is willing to pay and wants, to do better, then we need to educate them on how this helps them. And I think the conversation is just like we're having right now. It's here's the different things. Instead of spending 3 years trying to lose weight, instead of trying to, lift heavier weight and totally destroy your joints and your muscles, well, that works for some. It's not going to work for everybody.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, lack of understanding. It's like, if you understood this the way I understand it, it wouldn't be a question of should I do it.
Yeah,
It
it's
would be
when. When
yeah,
can
it
I?
would be yeah, how quickly do we get started if you understood it the way. And there's things in life that I don't understand, and someone's like, Joe doesn't get it. Okay, well then educate again, then
Right.
educate me, right? And that, yeah, I mean, a lot of it does come down to lack of understanding.
Right.
But it is, I look at the cost of not doing it, and that's kind of, I guess if we had a theme to this, is what is it going to cost you to keep guessing? It just, again, if you understood it like I would, you're like, yeah, there's no, why would I possibly guess on this?
Right.
And it just, there's, the cost is astronomical. Again, I mean, yes, we can throw a monetary value on it, but it's just, I'm just one of those guys. Like, I just, time and money, two biggest commodities on this planet. We never have enough money, never have enough time. You know, and it's just, I can't stand wasting time. And I look back at those 8 years. I didn't waste it because I got I mean, yes, I got results. Something did happen, but it's just like, but in my mind, I wasted my time. If
Yeah.
I would have just known this, it's time I can't get back. It's, if I would have just if we all say, if I knew then what I know now, life would be different. And it's like, it is so true. I mean, it's like, if I could go back in time and talk to 20-year-old me, what would I say? I mean, there'd be all sorts of stuff, but I would say, you make sure you lift like this, let's
Well,
get priorities straight here. Let's
there's
lifting.
there's a time there's a time to skip or spend less, but there's also some things that you shouldn't. I mean, I'm often, I'm guilty as everybody of, well, maybe I'm not going to buy the best this or that, and I'll cheap out. But for some things that I know matter, that to me, in what I do, I mean, motorcycles and stuff like that, protective equipment. I had a guy tell me one time, he's like, dude, throw that helmet away and get a real helmet. This was years ago, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, what's wrong? This thing was like $250, and he's wearing $1,000 helmet. This was probably 15, 20 years ago. And
It's
he's
just
like,
your brain.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of what he said, and it made me feel stupid. It's like, oh, oh, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's a time and a place to save money. Your health is not one of them.
I had a $65 helmet once I got from my tractor supply.
So yeah, I mean, it can be amusing and comical, the things that people, cheap out on. But everybody listening, I would implore you, your health is not one of them.
Right, right. Because that, I mean, it can, it is. I always, yeah. Now we're talking about marathons and bodybuilding and all that. Guys, a DNA test will literally show you how to live longer. I mean, I look at, I deal with older clients, elderly clients, all the time, and they're like, man, you know, don't take your health for granted. Don't end up like and it's like, yeah, I mean, if 70, 80 year old you could go back in time and talk to 20, 30, 40, 50-year old you, what would they say? They would
Right.
say, dude, get a DNA test, figure out your diet, cut the, yeah, not, yeah, drink soda, have a burger, I mean, do these things, but it's like, look, let's get a handle on this and let's live intentionally. But
Right.
again, if you're going to live intentionally, well, you have to have a track to run with. And if you're going to run with the track, run the one that your DNA lines up with. You have a specific way. Now, again, running a DNA test isn't going to do it for you either. Okay, I know. Okay, well now it's applied knowledge. Now we have to actually go work a plan, and that's where goals come in and all those things. But it's just, I mean, I just look at this like, again, don't just stop wasting time in life. Find out, run a test, figure it out. Because again, with techno, 20 years ago, I would have done it, but no one was offering them to me.
Right.
I just didn't know.
Yep.
But I mean, now, I mean, again, now we have all these tools out there. It's just, yeah, just work the tools that are available. And I promise you, you're gonna save money. We were talking before we hit record, and we're talking cost. Guys, these don't cost thousands of dollars. It's $300.
Yeah, I mean, the Genome Project, we mainstream, you've been hearing about DNA testing for a lot of years. We are now to the point where it is accessible to the main street for $300. We can tell you a wealth of things that will help you in your nutrition, your fitness, as well as, some of the mental aspects of being healthy. I think that's a no-brainer. Or I mean, literally $300.
Yeah.
Sure, I waste $300 a month
Oh, for
on
sure.
something.
I wish it was
I
only
mean,
300.
right. I mean, you look at that and it's like, I don't know. That's, I mean, going back to, youth sports, I mean, gosh, baseball bats are $500 now for it. It's just like, I mean, there's, my,
For one season.
right. Gosh, my 10-year-old has a, $1,200 phone.
Yeah, I remember when Parks was playing hockey, we would get these $150 sticks, and I would see a kid get a brand new stick and break it first shift out on the ice, and I would just like, uh
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, you look at, I mean, I, I do sit down with clients and I'm like, let's start adding up your costs. Like, what type of vitamins do you take? What do you do? Guys, I mean, it adds up. I'm telling you. I mean, and if you're a listener, obviously you're listening, but do that. Take an inventory of what you're spending. Look at your gym membership. Look at I don't know, if you have to have the newest clothing. I don't know. I don't. Um, I just get whatever t-shirt and go. But I mean, look at your diet. Look at the cost you spend on food. Right. Look at what you spend on breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right. Are you cooking it? Are you do you have Amazon automatically shipping you your fish oils? Do you, right, or whatever it is that you're doing? And then all of a sudden we can look at a DNA test and it says, okay, well, how does your body absorb vitamin D?
right.
Well, that'd be something to know if you're taking vitamin. Like I would rather just know. And right, it's like that. It's like that movie, The Matrix. I don't know if it was red pill or blue pill, but I don't know if the blue pill put him back to sleep and the red pill, awoke him to reality or vice versa. It doesn't matter. Now we're all going to go research it. Um, but I mean, again, like, do you want to go back to La La Land and just put your head in the sand and be like, okay, I still have hope in the future. Someday this will work. Or do you want to just be like, look, like I'm going to find out once and for all. Um, like what
I
is the
think
daily
what's that
protocol for me?
what's that guy's name? The longevity kind of weird dude, Brian Johnson, is it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and for some of the listeners that might be listen, this isn't that. It's kind of that direction, but this is information that will help you on your journey be healthier, improve your cardiovascular fitness, your VO2 max, improve your muscle strength, improve your balance, improve your gut health. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, Brian Johnson live to be 150.
Right.
Um, Live better today and add some years to the lifespan.
Yeah, yeah, and then it goes further. There's additional tests that dive even further, right?
Right.
This is kind of the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, it's just like Jim's. This is not one of those like, oh, this is. There was a guy that got in trouble, I don't know, decades ago that sold people on the idea that you're going to drink this thing and satellites are going to monitor them to tell them if they had cancer or not. Like, we're not talking about but I don't know if you guys ever heard of that, but yeah, people
Mhm.
were paying like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars because they had satellites up there monitoring them at all times. And of course, how do you prove that? How do you prove he didn't? Right. No, obviously this isn't that, but again, this is your DNA. Your DNA is going to tell your story, not your neighbors, because we hear this all the time. Most of the time people get motivated, they get right out of their comfort zone because somebody they know inspired them. Somebody at work, has been doing this, they lost weight, they ask them what they did and they tell them what they did. So then they automatically say, well, I'm going to try what you tried. And again, that's a noble thing to do. At least you are trying. But again, unless your DNA lines up exactly with that person, the results are not going to be the exact same. Yes, can you get results? Absolutely. But are you going to get the best results possible for you? If you're gonna spend the time doing something, you might as well just figure out you know your exact protocol.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right on.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. And for anybody listening, make sure to click the link in the description that can get you more information about our DNA tests if you're interested. And until next time, start testing and stop guessing. So, thanks, guys.
Thanks.